Okay, everyone, I finished reading Middlemarch. Yay! I've been chastising myself for not reading more serious classic literature lately. I keep opting for lighter, faster reads, but I'm hoping that this will break that drought because A, I liked it, and B, it only took me 3 weeks to read, and that's a big deal to me because it's a long book. Unfortunately, I have no physical copy to show how long it was because I read it as an ebook library loan. That's not the norm for me. I generally avoid reading either classics or very long books on the Kindle. Actually, considering what I just said, I've been avoiding reading classics and very long books altogether. But reading it as an ebook does have certain advantages, like the fact that it's lightweight and easy to carry around and you can read it just about anywhere. Plus, it's far more convenient for reading in bed, which I do, and if I fall asleep while reading and the Kindle hits me in the face, it doesn't hurt nearly as much as a 5-pound book. Not that the Kindle hitting you in the face doesn't hurt. I thought I broke my nose once when it fell on my face. Anyway, the book review is what you're here for, so let's talk about the book. Middlemarch was published in 1874 by George Eliot. This is the first Eliot I've ever read, and though I saw the mid-90s miniseries adaptation several years ago, I remembered so little about it that it barely made a difference. George Eliot, for those who don't know, is the pen name of Mary Ann Evans, one of the most highly regarded writers of the Victorian era. She chose to write under a man's name in the hope that her novels would be taken more seriously, as well as to keep them separate from published articles she'd written as a journalist and her controversial personal life. Eliot had a lifelong passion for politics and social issues, especially social reform issues, which is quite evident in Middlemarch. The narrative covers a broad range of topics and looks at national and local politics of the time, business, medicine, and so on, from the perspectives of those inhabiting the small provincial community of Middlemarch. Eliot uses her varied cast of characters to make an in-depth study of human nature at its best and its worst, at its most selfless and its most petty. This thorough psychological exploration is the book's greatest strength and what I enjoyed the most. Her characters are fleshed out individuals with strengths and weaknesses somewhat in equal measure, and what's really interesting is how in the course of events, the reader's opinion toward these characters is subject to change, or at least that's how it was in my case. There were characters I liked, but sometimes when they made a poor decision, it drove me crazy. There were characters that I expected to hate and kind of wanted to hate, but I ended up feeling sorry for them instead. And there was one character who was relatively harmless, but I just couldn't stand him because he was an idiot. I liked the writing as well. There were some particularly good, mentally satisfying quotes that I copied down so that I could dwell on them at a later date, and I was tickled by certain descriptions of characters' appearances, which I found to be apt, pithy, and memorable. I would be lying if I said I didn't have to work to stay focused on this. There were some very long sentences, long paragraphs, long sentences with multiple clauses that were very easy to get lost in, sprinkled with unfamiliar, outdated language that I had to look up. So occasionally I would have to go back to the beginning of a paragraph and try to regain the train of thought. But thank goodness, at least it was all relevant. I never felt like Eliot was wasting my time on pointless tangents, which has happened in some other books. Moby Dick comes to mind. Her attention to detail had a point and always remained character-focused. There is a little romance, a couple of romantic scenes, but I would not call it a romantic book. In fact, much of it is actually analyzing the breakdown of relationships for couples who find themselves in unhappy marriages. Eliot takes the reader on a play-by-play dissection of everything that goes wrong, from courtship all the way to whatever ends up being the conclusion for these couples, which is not the same in every case. Her message is certainly a cautionary one, a sort of marry in haste, repent at leisure on steroids. Now, there were some attitudes that Eliot took towards certain individuals or institutions that I wasn't in complete agreement with, since I am more traditional, I think, than Eliot was in the 19th century, at least toward a few things that struck me as I was reading this. I suspect that if Middlemarch were written today, certain ideas which were only hinted at would be more overt, maybe even more aggressive, and my general reaction toward the book might be different, might be less favorable. But that is merely conjecture, and as it is, my biggest disappointment with the book was that I found myself rooting for someone who turned out to be on the losing side of a love triangle. I feel like that happens to me a lot. I often root for the one who doesn't get the girl. I hope my good experience with this book will kickstart a renewed interest in classics for me. I used to read them so much more frequently when I was younger, when I really didn't understand everything that I read, but I've fallen off the wagon lately. This was a nice reminder of how much I do enjoy books like this, so hopefully I can get back in the habit of reading classics again. I've got plenty of old, heavy books on my shelf here, books that I can read in bed and smash myself in the face with. Great. I hope you enjoyed the review, and I'd be curious to hear any of your thoughts on the book if you've read it, so go ahead and leave them down below, and I'll see you in a few days. Thanks for watching!